Welcome back, everybody. Well, as you know, if you watched last week's segment, that was easy for me to say, it was about needs assessment. This week we're doing part 2, which is total cost of ownership, and then next week we're going to do the return on investment. And joining me again is Ray Appy, who's the president and CEO of Anise and Associates. So first, welcome back, Ray.
Thanks, Jesse.
Hey, and before we start this, I want to thank you for last week's segment. I made a joke at the end that to keep up with you, I was going to have to go look at it online. I did and I watched it like 3 times. It was, if you haven't seen it, you have to go to our website. It is so loaded with important information. I don't care if you're an individual, small business owner, or in the financial department of some big corporation. It was really quite a segment. So thanks.
Oh, thank you.
All right, we're going to try to keep up this week. The total cost of ownership.
TCO.
Yes, TCO. Let's frame it for our viewers, and then let's dig into it.
Okay. So first of all, when you purchase anything, you might want to think about what's the long-term cost of this thing that I want to buy. So in our world, a technology project or a technology system has a lifetime. That lifetime could be a year or 2 years, or it could be 7, 8, 9. It could be over 10, depending on what it is.
Okay.
So the variables we see there, for example, if you're buying a bunch of phones from Verizon, for example, those are 2-year contracts, right? And by that point in time, the device is out of date and it's probably starting to not work right and things like that. You know, you'll find that similar kind of thing with tablets. Maybe it's a couple years. Laptops and computers, it's usually 2 to 4 years, and then that's kind of the end of the life for that. Servers, a little bit longer. Maybe that's a 3 to 5 year time frame, depending on what you use it for, and on and on. So within the network, you might find that things are 4 to 6 years, in some cases even more. Some institutions, like in the education market, we find extending the life of network equipment a little bit longer. And then there's phone systems. Historically, phone systems could run for 20 plus years, no problem.
Right.
These days, it's 10 to 15 years, and then there's usually a major conversion. There's usually a reason for that, some business reason driving the change of the system. But yes, so phone systems usually a pretty long life. So you want to think about over the life of that thing, what's this really going to cost? And some of it you have to do some estimation, especially if you're thinking about something 10 years out, because things can change. But I think it's important for our clients to think about not just what's it going to cost to buy it, but what's it going to cost to operate it and run it over the life of the system, because that's total cost of ownership. What's it really going to be? What are your alternatives against that, and is it a good decision?
Gotcha. I want to break this down a little bit. You're covering a lot of topics. Let's, at least from the way I'm listening to you, purchase price would be like the first thing, and a lot of what you just mentioned had a lot to do with that.
Yeah.
What are the options there in terms of purchase?
Well, it's capital purchase, right? Pay cash for it, write the
right.
check, and then of course you can lease to own with a dollar buyout, so that you can use financing in different ways. Sometimes there's trade-in of older equipment, so there might be some trade-in value to reduce the purchase price. But yeah, you have to figure out everything as a snapshot to get the project off the ground, right? So your upfront initial costs, typically 70 to 80% of those costs are going to be paid, of the cost of the whole thing are going to be paid in the first year. So if there's equipment involved, it's going to be paying for the equipment, it's going to be paying for the software, it's going to be paying for the assessment, planning, design, consulting services, and the consulting services to implement the system. So that means physically installing it, whether it's putting phones on desks, computers on desks, network equipment and servers and racks, training end users how to use new systems, all those things that go into just getting it off the ground. So that's purchase price.
And you're really leaning into the second thing, which is the consulting services. It's one thing if you buy we know it in our industry. You buy a piece of equipment and you look at it, you think to yourself, "Oh my God, how's this work?"
Yeah.
You try to figure it out.
The manual.
Oh my God, yeah, the manual is usually 400 pages.
Yeah,
or
they don't even
like
get one
that.
anymore. You have to go find it online.
Oh yeah,
they don't send manuals or anything.
I'm a tactile kind of guy. I like actually to look at it, a manual itself. So on the consulting side, you're talking about coming in and helping with the assessment, which we did talk about last week. Then you're talking about the installation consultation, right? And then I would imagine there'd be a third piece to that, which is the actual application of that equipment and the options that you have within those applications.
That's a great word, options, because if you're going from an old way of doing business, an older system, it had certain options and limitations in the way that end users and systems administrators actually used the system. A new system might have a lot more options. It might actually it might be to the benefit of the business to have workflow and work processes be a little bit different and somewhat adapt to the new system a little bit, because you may be able to get greater efficiencies in your business with the new system. So one really important aspect of a large sort of all-encompassing technology project is to be sure that all of the end users and the power users and the department managers are all interviewed and worked with, so that they understand, so that the solution provider understands how they did everything, and so that they understand what their opportunities are in the future with the new system, how they might do things differently that'll improve their workflow. And that's a really important thing to do. So there is an aspect of professional consulting that actually works with end users, with power users, department managers, and planners within the organization, because there has to be that, I mean, installing something isn't just going and dropping it in and leaving. It's actually working with the organization to make sure that day two, we call it day two, you know, that day two, day three, day four, they actually know what they're doing with it, and they're actually starting to maximize the use of the new system and get what they expected out of it. So it's best not to leave them without that support day 2, 3, 4.
Right, sure. Again, it isn't just plug and play, you know.
Right.
Sounds to me like the third sort of detail that you'd want to address in deciding what the total cost of ownership would be more in the long term than the maintenance.
Yeah, yeah. So you think about we talked about the upstart costs, the first week, the first month, the first year, and then there's ongoing costs. And so typically, depending on what the system is, there will be a software maintenance contract, maybe a hardware maintenance contract. So that's providing, a software maintenance contract is going to provide technical support from the manufacturer of the programs that actually wrote the software. It's going to provide upgrades, updates, bug fixes, all those things that you need to operate it and keep it running clean. In the hardware world, it might include the same kind of thing: code support, bug fixes, and tech support from the manufacturer that built the equipment, but it might also include a parts replacement program. So if you have, you know, in hardware, sometimes things fail. A hard drive might fail, a memory might fail, a processor might fail, and you want to know that you can get a replacement really quickly to put it in and keep your systems running. So a maintenance program usually includes that, but that's not the end of it, right? So there'll be a maintenance program each year, but then in terms of ongoing support, we like to really understand how much of that new technology our clients can absorb. In other words, do they have a person or people on staff that are either capable or can get capable or tooled up on how to run this new system and operate it and maximize the use of it for the organization? If they have those resources, great, we'll work with them and help them get ready to do it. And if they don't have it, we'll offer augmentation, you know, staff augmentation, ongoing managed services, so that they can be sure to operate that system as best as possible. Because there's a lot of things that go into it. It's not just bug patching and maintenance type things. It's also moves, adds, and changes. You know, you might be moving a department of users from one building to another, or hiring new people. They need a computer, they need a phone, they need access to software programs, etc. So there's all those moves, adds, and changes that have to be dealt with in a business or a school or a hospital every day. So how are those going to be handled? Is a big question.
This last point that he's talking about, capabilities, was the one that hooked me. You know, you don't think in terms, you do always think about in the total cost of ownership. You think about the purchase of the equipment, you know, how is it going to be maintained?
Right.
Sometimes you forget the consulting piece because, again, we're not living in a plug-and-play world.
Right.
But the one that really hooks me is the capabilities. You know, in determining, you know, what this cost is going to be, you have to make an assessment. Do you have the capabilities in-house?
Right.
Or do you need to outsource it, either through services you provide or people that you recommend?
I think a big question too is, do you want the capabilities in-house? I mean, maybe,
Yes,
you know, if you have a limited IT staff, do you really want them handling system management? Is there something more strategic that those staff members could be doing on a day-to-day basis that's actually working more directly with the business versus the utilities under the business, you know? So.
Gotcha, Ray. Boy, thank you again. Another great segment.
Hey, you're welcome.
So part 3 next week is the return on the investment for everything we talked about last week with needs assessment and everything that we talked about this week with the total cost of ownership. Ray, thank you very much. I'll see you next week.
Absolutely. Thanks, Jesse.
See this interview again? Head to our website, looktvonline.com.